defend. From menace to son, to me he was a friend. Never wanted a penny more than the agreement. Yeah. Born and raised as a soldier, just sort of justice. Coming straight from the lineage of King David. To me, he was a hero. To some, he was their sorrow. Where do the warriors go? Is there a place where the streets are paved with gold? Milk and honey flowing from the fountains. Tell me then, is there a warrior's heaven? I'm as small and not know is a thing to walk. Where do the warriors go? Is there a place where one man born to defend readily gives his life for a friend? Is there a warrior's heaven?
There must be a place for the warriors who broke down the barriers to rest their souls. Must be a place that is warm for the buffalo soldiers coming in from the cold. Must be a place for the brave and the bold where the unsung hero stories are told. Must be a place where the truths unfold as the billows roll. I read about it from the ancient scroll. Come in at this one, we live where politics here, and the people of the higher society don't care. While the rapers and the killers of the people them steer. The justice declare and the place gets repaired. See all of them, they're good things to see you make happen. It hurt me to see your body lay down in a coffin. But all when your bones them rotten, you're gone, but you're never forgotten.
And though society offers no better father, no better promise, they say you are a bad man. No, as for me, 1,000 deaths salute to a true warrior. Somebody tell me, where do the warriors go? Is there a place?
Greetings and salutations to one and all. Welcome to the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew.
Where do the warriors?
It's Community and Finance Night, first of the week.
Is there a
First night shift show of the week, that is.
man born to defend readily gives his
How you doing? I want to say big ups to each and everyone locked in right now. Those on tuning radio, the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. WGLRO, home of the Donny Walker Morning Show, taking you from the sheets to the streets. The People Station.
For the buffalo soldiers coming in from the
They
cold.
take you anywhere from Denmark to Detroit and everywhere in between.
Stories are told. Must be a place where the truths unfold as the
I want to say big ups to my friends across the pond. One Harmony Radio. Top of the morning to you over there in the UK.
the higher society don't care. While the rapers and the killers of the people them steer. The justice declare and
Big ups to those locked in on PEMG TV.
to see you make happen.
Welcome.
Your body lay down in a coffin.
Big ups to those right here at the home of the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew, kevinstew.com.
society.
Glad to have you.
No better,
Couldn't do it without you.
no better.
And you have my word, I wouldn't even try.
Say you are a bad man. No, as for me, 1,000 deaths.
Starting it off tonight with a little Hezron working out with Louis Culture. A track called Warriors Heaven.
Do the warriors go? Is there a place where the streets are paved with gold? Milk and honey flowing from the fountains. Everything is there. A warrior's heaven.
I want to say thanks to Pulse Media Group for sponsoring this segment of the show. When being in the moment is priceless, Pulse Media is who you need to call.
On to the field, gives his life.
They can do so much for you. What you see right here on kevinstew.com, they can make that happen. They can help you to build a site, if not build it for you. They can definitely host it for you. They can provide you with streaming services just like this, or for an event that you might be having. They can do the streaming for you, or they can guide you into doing it yourself. Just give them a call, 754-999-6020.
Streets so paved with gold, milk and honey flowing from the fountains. Everything is there, what is
You can also visit them at paulcmg.com. Tell them you heard about them on Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. So, on Wednesday, we started having a conversation about a true conversation about the psychological effects of war. And I didn't get to go through the material that I had found with good reason. We had a call in from a veteran, our very own Healing Heavenly Hands Althea SU called in, and she gave of her account of being in the military. And we spent pretty much all night talking with her about some of the effects of war on her. Though she wasn't deployed to the front line, she was an active part of what was happening, and being support staff here stateside, but you still suffer some of the effects of it. And going through basic training, some of the drills that they had to go through, like live fire drills, they had similar effects to what you experienced when you went to war. And I have a feeling I'm going to have to continue with that this week, with the on the real talk side. And if not this week, I will continue with that, just to let you know. But tonight, I'm looking at the same thing from a different perspective. Yes, it has to do with the effects of war. But for tonight in community and finance, we're going to look at the effects of war on the economy and on the environment. Community and finance, right? So before I get into this, let me just make sure to say big ups to those who are logged in and listening that are not in the stew pot, and big ups to those who are joining into the stew pot. And I invite everybody to jump into the stew pot. It's our interactive portal on kevinstew.com. It's what others call a chat room. For us, it's the stew pot. It's where we keep things bubbling. So jump on in. The water is always fine. I want to big up our guest that's already popping in and popping out. But big ups to you. For when it comes to the impacts of war, the effects of war, when you put aside the human cost, which is a very real cost, then you get into the economic cost. You have the loss of buildings, infrastructure, a decline in the working population, rise in debt, and disruption of normal activities. Yet, from some perspectives, war can be beneficial in terms of creating demand, employment, innovation, and profits for businesses. Now, to a large extent, it depends on whether the war takes place in your country, your home country, or in another country. I was talking to a coworker, a colleague today, and she mentioned that her parents and her to some extent experienced civil war. And I was like, wow, that is deep. And I asked her then and there, you think your parents would share with the wider community on matters of this, how they feel about it, what they experienced, and how they think it affects them. Greetings to you again. And I'm waiting for a response. I'm praying that she'll actually go and talk to them. But we often kind of turn a blind eye to what some of the other effects of war is. Either we turn a blind eye to it or we don't know. So, and I'd like to think that we don't know. And we're trying to take some time to educate ourselves on some of the things that happen as a result of war. One of the discussions I had last week with a colleague was that, America should go and wipe these people out. And it is based, of course, on what the individual knew, which was only what was being fed to Americans. And I said, have you taken into consideration what foreigners are being fed about America? And it's difficult for someone who has not lived in one of these countries to understand what that is like, especially if it is a third world country. All right, so some of the perspectives, or from some perspectives, war can be beneficial. And when you look at businesses, yeah, in some ways it can. Now, economicshelp.org has a diagram of the economic impact of war. And with this diagram, you have the economic impact in the middle. And all around it, what you have is lost GDP unless war takes place in another country. You have creates employment. You have damage to buildings and infrastructure. You have rising national debt, higher taxes in the future. Something to think about right there. Inflation, opportunity cost. For example, the decline in healthcare. You have psychological costs, which we started talking about last week. Innovation, new technology. Decline in working population because people are being sent to war. Now, of course, there's the other side of it where with what happens when people come back from war. But let's start with the cost of war. So, in many it's really interesting when the equipment does this. And so the mic just cut out just now. And those of you watching, you saw my face. Those of you listening would I'm sure you were wondering what's going on here. All right, so I do apologize for that. In many circumstances, war can lead to inflation. And this leads to loss of people's savings, rise in uncertainty, and loss of confidence in the financial system. For example, in the US Civil War, the Confederacy struggled financially to meet the cost of the war. So they started printing money to pay soldiers' salaries. But as they printed money, the value of money soon declined. High inflation hits middle income savers the most as they see the value of their savings wiped out. Hyperinflation is often a result when the war ends. For example, with a devastated economy in 1946, Hungary and Austria experienced the highest rates of hyperinflation on record. During war, we also often see a rapid rise in public sector debt. The government is willing to borrow a lot more than usual because there is patriotic support for the war. Right? Now, both the First and Second World Wars were very costly for the UK. In both cases, the national debt rose sharply. In the post-war period, debt continued to rise due to reconstruction and the creation of the welfare state. Now, UK national debt rose from 150% at the end of World War II, but then rose to 240% by the early 1950s. However, this level of national debt was not a problem for the long period of economic expansion post-World War. The UK relied on loans from the US during the Second World War and took many decades to pay them off. For the US, which was not involved in the first 2 years, the rise in national debt was not as pronounced. The US profited from selling arms and equipment to the UK during the early years, though on generous lend-lease terms. Now, although war can provide a temporary boost to domestic demand, it is important to bear in mind the cost of war. In particular, the opportunity cost of military spending, the human cost of lives, the cost of rebuilding after the devastation of war. And it depends on the kind of war, how prolonged it was, where and how it is actually fought. When it comes to civil war, they can have a devastating impact on the economic development of countries. Countries experiencing civil war will see a collapse in tourism, foreign investment, and domestic investment. It can lead to shorter life expectancy and lost GDP. A report entitled Africa's Missing Billions, Oxfam in 2007, estimates the cost of war in Africa has been equal to the amount of international aid. A country like Democratic Republic of Congo has experienced a particularly difficult war, which, besides causing the deaths of about 4 million people, had the cost of about £9 billion, or 29% of its gross domestic product. £9 billion is what? About 2 to 1, about $18 billion US. Somewhere around there, roughly. The report also notes that ongoing war and increased availability of weapons can lead to increase in rates of armed violence and organized crime. This is an example of the projected loss. There's an example of a projected loss of GDP for Burundi during the civil war, or Burundi. It is calculated by an estimated pre-war trend of GDP and actual GDP. And it shows that a decade of conflict is a major cause of falling GDP. But also, it is worse than what the graph, there's a graph, what it shows. Because during a war, a large percentage of GDP is spent on destructive military hardware. The decline in health services and education are likely to even be greater. Now, so you have all this investment going into the war, and the war is being fought, and the war comes to an end. Then what? Invariably, war leads a legacy of debt and an army of demobilized soldiers. After the Second World War, the debt was not as constrained to growth, and there was one of the longest periods of economic expansion on record. That's post-war Britain. Now, the aftermath of war is not always positive. The UK struggled after the end of the Napoleonic War and after the end of the First World War. In the 1920s, the UK struggled with a long period of unemployment. Returning soldiers found very poor employment prospects. Yet, after the Second World War, the US and Europe experienced full employment. The German economy was ravaged by the aftermath of the First World War and the demand for reparation payments. Struggling to meet reparation payments, Germany resorted to printing money, leading to hyperinflation. The discord around the German hyperinflation of the 1920s sowed the seeds for political extremism and future wars. However, after the Second World War, the Allies didn't make the same mistake. The US gave a generous aid to Western Europe, helping the rebuilding process and lending to the economic miracle of Europe, and Germany in particular. It is worth mentioning the opportunity cost of war. And this is something to take into consideration. If a government spends an extra $300 billion on military spending, that is $300 billion that could have been spent in building hospitals and schools. And according to a report by the Watson Institute, reported by Reuters, the cost of the Iraq war was $2 trillion. This $2 trillion could equally have been spent on more constructive development projects. Easily. But it was busy being spent on the war. Weapons, new technology, you name it. And technology is not such a bad thing. But the cost of getting this technology, the human cost, because no, you're talking about going back to war. So even with the buzz about around what is going on between I don't want to say the US and Iraq, because there are some that would argue that it's between Trump and Iraq. So with what is going on now with the Iraq situation, let's call it that, there's talk of war. And some of these things that we're talking about tonight affecting the economy, well, could very well come into play. So it would be wise for us to really pay attention to what history has taught us, right? Because from history we would learn a lot. So it only makes sense. We're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we talk a little bit more. We're looking at the economic impact that war has. And then afterwards, a little bit later, we look at the environmental impact of war. Call a friend, tell a friend. It's a night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. We're talking about tonight in community and finance. We're talking about the economic and environmental effects of war. We'll be right back.
Pulsey Media Group, innovative streaming and recording, has done it again. A new way to get your business in full view of your neighborhood consumer through AdShare TV. It's available in your neighborhood today. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. Become a host today and place a TV monitor in a strategic location so it's easy to see. Get a 1-minute video ad or longer that plays anywhere in our network. Can't be a host? No problem. For a few dollars, we'll run your 30-second video ad. A host can run announcement specials like buy one get one free or discount ads. Let's turn your flyers into a 30-second video with music or a voiceover, or let us create and run your video ad with a spokesperson. Take advantage of our early enrollment discount. Join us today. Your ad will be seen at least 30 times per day in your AdShare TV neighborhood. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. AdShare TV, part of Pulsey Media Group.
...2020 is going to be epic. Land Beloved Media Group presents Saturday Night Live, Saturday, January 25th at The Garden, 4340 North State Road 7 in Lauderdale Lakes. Performing live, Lieutenant Stitchy, Ed Robinson, Ricky Stereo, Benji Myers, Little Mickey, and the female trio that's been creating waves across the nation, SDS. All backed by the award-winning Code Red Band. Doors open at 9 p.m., showtime 11 p.m. Tickets available at eventbrite.com. For more information, contact 954-998-8034 or 954-300-2574. Saturday Night Live, January 25th at The Garden. You can't miss this one.
We love it. We love it. Yeah, man.
Matthew 28:19 says, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations." With this in mind, and encouragement received during a South Florida media conference, The Church Links was birthed. The Church Links is an interdenominational worship service portal for churches, providing the tools to spread the word through technology in a cost-effective way. The Church Links, www.dahchurchlinx.com. Your links to worship and praise.
It takes an entire village to raise a child. Hello, I'm Paul Campbell, here to talk about Palace. Peace and Love Academic Scholarship. This nonprofit group supports students facing serious obstacles from entering or continuing their studies, not because the grades are failing, but due to the lack of financial support.
Over the past 8 years, Palace has awarded 600 scholarships valued at approximately 50.3 million Jamaican dollars, or 415,000 US dollars.
Together, we must build a better future for our children. Please visit www.palace.org palace1.org and make your donation to brighten the future of a deserving child. Palace, preserving young minds for posterity.
Hi, this is Cara Manti, and you're listening to DJ Kevin Stew, and this is The Night Shift.
Phenomenal music, shaman sound, Cara Manti come down. That one you have for every human, Caucasian, black man, Asian. Yo, me no business more race man. Me a big up every real than we pre-female and left out the gay clan. Yow yow. Every human, every nation, Chinese, Asian. You know me nah left out Jamaican. Me a big up every real than we stay natural. Them no bleach nor tan nah nah. Yeah, me want to touch panic. A big woman think me kinda tired of the curry. Man a boor tongue and them a act real feminine. A call me a bigger to me say me don't like it. Well, I feel me mouth, me chat, me not like it. If you have a problem, skip take the exit. The thing out and my law just makes it. Everybody free at slavery, some next ish, but I know nothing can me focus. No time for the focus. Notice when you're acting bogus. How your whole world stuck in a locus. From the lies, them a choke up. Time me mind, them a act ferocious. On the truth, to no start refocus. Ignorance head just bust. The one you have for every human, Caucasian, black man, Asian. Yo, me no business more race man. Me a big up every real than we pre-female and left out the gay clan. Yow. Every human, every nation, Chinese, Asian. You know me nah left out Jamaican.
I want to welcome you back to the show.
This
is the son of Caramanti. The track is called All Nation.
I'm determined for me words to me step. You not control, no move for me make. No bleaching cream. You must see my lick your head. Now lay with no woman. Force so me rather dead. A strictly opposite sex in my bed. And a straight in.
I want to say thanks to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands for sponsoring this segment of the show.
This like a knowledge of self and no joking. If you don't know, you are man.
Althea is a licensed massage therapist that comes to you if you're in Broward County, North Miami-Dade, South Palm Beach. Just give her a call, 954-655-9000, or email her at thealater@att.net. Tell her you heard about her on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew.
Every human, every nation, Chinese, Asian, you know me now left out Jamaica.
Caraman to the track called All Nations. Alright, so we're talking tonight about war. We're talking about the economic and environmental effect that war has. And when we look at one of the things we need to mention, even as we go through, yes, I'm focusing on economic and environmental, but I need to mention it is possible to estimate the economic cost of war. You know, the cost of military and such, you know, weapons. It's harder to estimate the psychological cost of war. The pain of death, the suffering, the fear, the disability, all of these things combined. And a conflict can leave soldiers and civilians it can leave them traumatized. And this is not like it's not one of those things that they're going to be traumatized for a couple of months or a year. Nah, you're talking about for the rest of their lives. And in recent years, post-traumatic stress syndrome is more widely accepted, but putting a cost on how war negatively affects those involved is difficult to do, because even with the treatment of post-traumatic stress as a result of wars, there's a cost to it, because you have to pay for the services. If the services do not exist, you have to pay to get them there. If there's nobody there to provide the services, then someone has to pay to learn how to provide those services. So there's a cost. In all of this, there's a cost. there are some potential benefits to when it comes to war, and you kind of have to be careful how you try on or you look into what the benefits can be from war, economic benefits. But on the surface, what do you have? You have full employment. You have higher economic growth. You have increased rates of innovation as the government invests in new technology, like the development of radar and jet engines in the Second World War. And these things can be used during peace times. And then you have change in social attitudes, like women entering labor market as it happened after the First World War. So these are some positives that can come out of the negative that is a war. In the 1930s, James Keynes advocated government borrowing and government spending to reduce the mass unemployment of the Great Depression. However, it was only the onset of the Second World War where there was a political impetus to pursue sufficient spending. In both UK and the US, the economy soon reached full employment, often with shortages in key areas as men joined the army. In fact, one of the side effects of the First and Second World War was growth in female employment. In the years 1914 to 1918, women took on jobs previously the sole reserve of men. And this helped to change cultural attitudes and gain women the vote. And shortly after the end of the Second World War. Shortly after the First World War. However, at the end of major wars, something else also happens. There's a possibility, there's a danger that returning soldiers may struggle to find employment. And after the end of the First World War, there was a major economic slump. And returning soldiers struggled to find jobs which had been replaced during the war. So, I know servicemen, veterans, today that are struggling to find jobs. So we're talking about veterans who only recently became army veterans, military veterans. We're talking in the last 2 or 3 years, struggling to find jobs today. And these are men and women who signed up. They offered their life to protect their country, only to come back to what? Not be in a position to get a paycheck, a regular paycheck. A sharp rise in unemployment after the end of the First World War was imminent. The Versailles Treaty, which demanded reparations from Germany, did not help as it contributed to lower trade. In the 1950s and 1960s, the US was involved in major conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and Cambodia. Military spending took an increasing share of GDP and was partly responsible for strong domestic demand and high rates of economic growth. Companies involved in the manufacture of arms saw a rise in demand and profit. And that worked, but only for a short time and only for a select group. is that enough to justify wars? When you consider going out there and doing something that causes damage, yes, damage brings about repair and new growth. But you can't leave out the damage. And there has to be a period of cleanup for the new damage, for the new growth to take place. And so here now you have environmental effects of wars. Numbers that you can call: 773-789-STEW, 773-789-7839. If you care to share and participate. And of course, the stew pot is also available. It's always there for you just when you need it. you want to comment, just go ahead, jump into the stew pot. You don't have to put your name, as it is also quite it's not non-judgmental. So we welcome you to share in the stew pot. I am multitasking here because I am getting messages on top of messages. Okay. Okay. So the environmental effects of war. I'm gonna have to address that in the next break. Warfare, which is never any fun, ever, is inherently destructive of sustainable environment and sustainable development. States shall therefore respect international law providing protection for the environment in times of armed conflict and cooperate in its further development as necessary. That was the 1992 Rio Declaration. The application of weapons, the destruction of structures and oil fields, fires, military transportation movements, and chemical spraying are all examples of destroying impact war may have on the environment. Air, water, soil, all polluted. Man, animals killed. Numerous health effects or occur among those who are still living. And what we're going to do right now is look at some of the effects of wars on various parts of the global community. Guns N' Roses, in their track Civil War, say, "My hands are tied. The billions shift from side to side, and the wars go on with brainwashed pride. For the love of God and our human rights, and all these things are swept aside by bloody hands time can't deny, and are washed away by your genocide. And history hides the lies of our civil wars." In Africa, many civil wars and wars between countries occurred in the past century. some of which are still going on right now. Most wars are the result of liberation of countries and decades of colonialization. Countries fight over artificial borders drawn by former colonial rulers. Wars mainly occur in densely populated regions over the division of scarce resources such as fertile farmland. It is very hard to estimate the exact economical impact of each of these wars. And we're going to look at a summary of some of the most striking environmental effects, including biodiversity loss, famine, sanitation problems, sanitation problems at refugee camps, and overfishing, as we look at it affecting different countries. In the Congo War, since 1998, a civil war is fought in former Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. The war eventually ended in 2003 when transitional governments took power. A number of reasons are given for the conflict, including access and control of water resources and rich minerals and political agendas. Currently, over 3 million people have died in the war, mostly from disease and starvation. More than 2 million people have become refugees. Only 45% of the people had access to safe drinking water. Many women were raped as a tool of intimidation, resulting in a rapid spread of sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV/AIDS. The war has a devastating effect on the environment. National parks housing endangered species are often affected for exploitation of minerals and other resources. Refugees hunt wildlife for bushmeat, either to consume it or to sell it. Elephant populations in Africa have seriously declined as a result of ivory poaching. Farmers burn parts of the forest to apply as farmland. And corporate logging contributes to the access of poachers to bushmeat. A survey by WWF showed that the hippopotamus population in one national park decreased from 29,000 30 years previously to only 900 in 2005. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, listed all 5 parks as World Heritage in danger. All 5 parks. Then you have Ethiopia and Eritrea. Before 1952, Eritrea was a colony of Italy. When it was liberated and Ethiopia annexed the country, 30 years of war over the liberation of Eritrea followed, starting in 1961 and eventually ending with the independence of Eritrea in 1993. However, war commenced a year after the country introduced its own currency in 1997 over a minor border dispute, differences in ethnicity, and economic progress. Ethiopia again attacked Eritrea. The war lasted until June 2000 and resulted in the death of over 150,000 Eritreans and of the hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians. Now, during the war, severe drought resulted in famine, particularly because most government funds were spent on weapons and other war instrumentation. The government estimated that after the war, only 60% of the country received adequate food supplies. The war resulted in over 750,000 refugees. It basically destroyed the entire infrastructure. Efforts to disrupt agricultural production in Eritrea resulted in changes in habitat. The placing of landmines has caused farming or herding to be very dangerous in most parts of the country. If flood occurs, landmines may be washed into cities. This has occurred earlier in Mozambique. You see some of the environmental effects of war. Are you getting it? Is it starting to paint a picture? It doesn't stop there. There's more. You have the Rwanda Civil War. Between April and July 1994, extremist military Hutu groups murdered about 80,000 to 100,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus in Rwanda. Over 200,000 people lost their lives. They lost their homes, and became refugees. Rwanda has a very rich environment. However, it has a particularly limited resource base. About 95% of the population lives on the countryside and relies on agriculture. Some scientists believe that competition for scarce land and resources led to violence prior to and particularly after the 1994 genocide. It is, however, stated that resource scarcity only contributed limitedly to the conflict under discussion. The main cause of the genocide was the death of the president from a plane crash caused by missiles fired from a camp. The many refugees from the 1994 combat caused a biodiversity problem. When they returned to the already overpopulated country after the war, they inhabited forest reserves in the mountains where endangered gorillas lived. Conservation of gorilla populations was no longer effective, and refugees destroyed part of the habitat. Now, despite the difficulties still present in Rwanda, particularly concerning security and resource provisions, an international gorilla protection group is now working on better conditions for the gorillas in Rwanda. And the gorillas here, we're talking about the actual animals, not the militia group. In the Somalia war, let me touch on this real quickly before I go into my next break. In the Somalia Civil War, you have the war being fought in 1991, Somalia Civil War. And one of the most striking effects of the war was actually overfishing. The International Red Cross was encouraging the consumption of seawater fish to improve diets of civilians. For self-sufficiency, they provided training and fishing equipment. However, as a consequence of war, Somali people ignored international fishing protocols, thereby seriously harming ecology and in the region. Fishing soon became an unsustainable practice, and fishermen are hard to stop because they started carrying arms. Again, here you have the result of arms being provided for war. they perceive overfishing as a property right. And therefore, it is very difficult to stop them. See some of the effects of war? Things that we don't really take into consideration, and mostly because we don't see it. But it doesn't mean that it is not there. We're going to take another quick little break, and when we come back, we talk a little bit more about the effects, the environmental effects of war. We'll be right back.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today?
The only thing I didn't learn?
Is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
Land We Love Media Group presents Saturday Night Live on Saturday, January 25th, inside the Garden, featuring Lieutenant Stitchy. Also performing, Ed Robinson, Benji Meyer, and making their performance debut, SDS. Ricky Stereo and Little Nikki will also be performing, all backed by the award-winning Code Red Band. Admission $25 in advance. Saturday Night Live at the Garden, 4340 North State Road 7 in Lauderdale Lakes. Be there.
I'm in almost every school bus and classroom. You see me around the neighborhood and you tell me that I'm a pretty good kid. Well, I'm one out of every 5 children in America, and I'm struggling with hunger.
Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help.
Every dollar you donate helps provide 8 meals for kids like me. We are Feeding America, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
When being in the moment is priceless, consider the ability to share that moment. If you can video it, you can broadcast it. And Pulse E-Media Group has the tools you need. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, graduations, church services, parties, seminars, you name it. Pulse E-Media Group can provide you with a secure medium controlled by you to broadcast your event. Contact us at www.pulsemediagroup.com for more information. Pulse E-Media Group, when being in the moment is priceless.
JTMC Music presents the highly anticipated, much talked about, The Juggling Rhythm Volume 1. This classic rhythm takes on a new life with tracks from both established artists and introduces some incredible new voices. Get your dancing shoes ready with The Juggling Rhythm, featuring international reggae dancehall artist Mr. Vegas, alongside Ian Sweetness, Ed Robinson, Jack Radix, Hezron, Dangling, Joanna Marie featuring Galaxy P, Denny Ranks featuring Jawiz, Ambalik, Christine Alicia, Yishka. Also the new sensations on the rhythm: Zeal, Danger Lee, Marquis Skelenar, Zachary. Available on all digital media outlets. The Juggling Rhythm. Get it, get it, get it.
Hey, I'm representing for DJ Kevin Stew, working on the night shift radio show. Won't go changing like the weather, just to please the devil never. Will DJ Kevin Stew sell his soul? That's a word and honor. It's Christine representing word and honor. Selassie DJ Kevin Stew.
It's been a long time coming. Are you ever gonna change? Are you ever gonna to take advice for how I'm feeling? It's been a long time running, and I know you wanna stay. So I think that it is time we live like we used to. Right all around the city singing with the top down. Let's take it back to when we were younger. It's been a long time coming, so put on a happy face. Grab my hand so we can let all of our troubles out. There's no care tonight. Take me for a ride. Even when it's dark, never will lie. Even when it's dark and you lose your mind. Oh, right in the moment when your head is confused. Oh, I will stay in the madness with you. Oh, now you're so crazy. Oh, I'm crazy too. Right in the moment when your head is confused. Oh, I will stay in the madness with you. Baby, don't you worry, 'cause you know I understand what it's like to be chewed up and spit out in the cold world. Baby, there's no hurry, as long as you take my hand. We can dance and I won't be the one to let you go. There's no care tonight. Take me for a ride. Even when it's dark, never will lie. Even when it's dark and you lose your mind. Oh, right in the moment when your head is confused. Oh, I will stay in the madness with you. Oh, now you're so crazy. Oh, I'm crazy too. Right in the moment when your head is confused. Oh, I will stay in the madness with you.
I want to welcome you back to the show. This is the sound of Royce. The track is called Madness. I want to say thanks to Reggae Global Entertainment for sponsoring this segment of the show. Do pay them a visit on their website. Or give them a call, 954-998-8034. The artist goes by the name Royce. The track is called Madness. And I got a little bit of information from a little birdie that told me there's a new logo coming out for Reggae Global Entertainment. I'm truly looking forward to seeing that. You know, there are some really creative people with Reggae Global. But just to let you know real quick, Reggae Global takes care of bookings, tour management, artist profiles. That's done for e-blast purposes. They do visual EPKs, graphic designs, legal contracts, copyrights, publishing. Let's give them a call. It's kind of a one-stop shop. Tell them you heard about them on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Right in the moment when your head is confused, I'll be right there in the madness with you. Some of the madness that is war somehow just never goes away. And it really doesn't matter how hard you try, it's just there. You know, this war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. But yet there it is. We're looking right now at some of the environmental effects of war. Earlier we were looking at some of the economic effects of war. Or the effect that war has on the economy. Now we're looking at some of the effects that war has on the environment. And someone commented in the stew pot and said war is a form of human genocide. And that's not one of the things that I can really argue with when you really think about it. But we'll talk some more about that, because I do intend to talk a little bit more about wars. So if you know someone who is a veteran that would like to share of their experience when it comes to war, please give them a number, 773-789-STEW, 773-789-7839, or tell them my email, djkevinstew@gmail.com. Let them get in touch with me. Or if you can't remember any of those things, just send them to the website. All the contact information is there, kevinstew.com. Because these are some of the things that people think about from time to time, but never know where exactly to get the real information on. In Sudan, the civil war and extreme drought caused a widespread famine, and that started in 1983. Productive farmland in the southern region was abandoned during the war. Thousands of people became refugees that left behind their land, possibly never to return. Attempts of remaining farmers to cultivate new land to grow crops despite the drought led to desertification and soil erosion. The government failed to act for fear of losing its administrative image abroad, causing the famine to kill an estimated 95,000 of the 3.1 million residents of the province Darfur. As farmers started claiming more and more land, routes supplied by herders were closed off. This resulted in conflicts between farmers and rebel groups. In 2003, a conflict was fought in Darfur between Arab Sudanese farmers and non-Arab Muslims. The Muslim group is called Janjaweed, a tribe mainly consisting of nomadic sheep and cattle herders. Originally, the Janjaweed were part of the Sudanese and Darfurian militia and were armed by the Sudanese government to counter rebellion. However, they started utilizing the weapons against non-Muslim civilians. The tribe became notorious for massacre in the years 2003 to 2004. In December 2005, the conflict continued across the border, now involving governmental troops from Chad and the rebel groups Janjaweed and United Front for Democratic Change from Sudan. In February 2006, the governments of Chad and Sudan signed a peace treaty called the Tripoli Agreement. Now, unfortunately, a new rebel assault of the capital of Chad in April made Chad break all ties with Sudan. The Darfur conflict so far caused the death of between 50,000 and 450,000 civilians. It caused over 45,000 people to flee the countries of Sudan and Central Africa into North and East Chad. Most refugees claim they fled civilian attacks from rebel forces, looting food and recruiting young men to join their troops. Coming closer to home, when World War II began, Japan signed the Tripartite Pact with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Consequentially, the United States closed the Panama Canal to Japanese shipping and initiated a complete oil embargo. Japan, being dependent on US oil, responded to the embargo violently. In December 1941, Japanese troops carried out a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, aimed at the US Navy station there. Now, despite the awareness that Japan might attack, the US was surprisingly unprepared for the Japanese aggression. There were no aircraft patrols, and anti-aircraft weapons were not manned. For the attack, 5 Japanese submarines were present in the harbor to launch torpedoes. One was discovered immediately and attacked by the USS Ward. All 5 submarines sank, and at least 3 of them had not been located since. As Japanese bombers arrived, they began firing at US Marine air bases across Hawaii and subsequently battleships in Pearl Harbor. 18 ships sank, including 5 battleships, and a total of more than 2,000 Americans were killed in action. The explosion of the USS Arizona caused half of the casualties. The ship was hit by a bomb, burned for 2 days in a row, and subsequently sank to the bottom of the ocean. The cloud of black smoke over the boat was mainly caused by burning black powder from the magazine for aircraft catapults aboard the ship. Leaking fuel from the Arizona and other ships caught fire and caused more ships to catch fire. Of the 350 Japanese planes taking part in the attack, 29 were lost. Over 60 Japanese were killed in action, most of them airmen. Today, 3 battleships are still at the bottom of the harbor. 4 others were raised and reused. The USS Arizona, being the most heavily damaged ship during the attack, continues to leak oil from the hull into the harbor. However, the wreck is maintained because it now serves as part of a war memorial. But can you imagine the death of ocean life caused by the oil and the fires? They couldn't even measure it. You realize it wasn't even mentioned? But it goes without even saying that there had to have been marine life that was lost. On American soil, there was the World Trade Center explosion. And the so-called war on terrorism the United States are fighting in Asia pretty much all started with the event that is recalled so well from shocking images projected on news bulletins. September 11, 2001. Terrorists flew airplanes into the buildings of the World Trade Center. And it is now claimed that the attack and simultaneous collapse of the Twin Towers caused a serious and acute environmental disorder. Disaster. I'm sorry. Lawrence Swan, in October of 2001, said, "We will live in the death smog for a while, breathing the dust of the dead. The 3,000 or so who turned to smoke as the giant ashtray in Lower Manhattan continues to give up ghosts. The dead are now in us, locked in our chests, staining our lungs, polluting our bloodstreams. And though we cover our faces with flags and other places of cloth to filter the air, with flags and other pieces of cloth to filter the air, the spirits of the dead aren't fooled by our masks." As the planes hit the Twin Towers, more than 90,000 liters of jet fuel burned at temperatures above 1,000 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric plume formed, consisting of toxic materials such as metals, furans, asbestos, dioxins, PAH, PCB, and hydrochloric acid. Most of the materials were fibers from the structure of the building. Asbestos levels ranged from 0.3 to 3.0% of the total mass. PAH comprised of more than 0.1 of the total mass, and PCBs less than 0.001% of total mass. At the site now called Ground Zero, a large pile of smoking rubble burned intermittently for more than 3 months. Gaseous and particulate particles kept forming long after the towers had collapsed. The day of the attacks, dust particles of various sizes spread over Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn for many miles. Firefighters and medics working at the World Trade Center were exposed, but also men and women on the streets and in nearby buildings, and children in nearby schools. In vivo inhalation studies and epidemiological studies pointed out the impact of the dust cloud. Health effects from inhaling dust included bronchial hyperreactivity because of the high alkalinity of dust particles. Other possible health effects include coughs and increased risks of asthma and a twofold increase in the number of small for gestational age babies among pregnant women present in or nearby the Twin Towers at the time of the attack. After September, airborne pollutant concentration in nearby communities declined. Many people present at the World Trade Center at the time of the attacks are still checked regularly because long-term effects may eventually show. It is thought there may be an increased risk of development of mesothelioma, consequential to exposure to asbestos. This is a disease where malignant cells develop in the protective cover of the body's organs. Airborne dioxins in the days and weeks after the attack may increase in the risk of cancer and diabetes. Infants of women that were pregnant on September 11 and had been in the vicinity of the World Trade Center at the time of the attack are also checked for growth and developmental problems. What happened on September 11, 2001 wasn't a one-time effect activity. It continued on for years, and people are still being checked for the effects of it. In Asia, in October 2001, the US attacked Afghanistan as a starting chapter of the war on terrorism, which pretty much still continues today. The ultimate goal was to replace the Taliban government and to find an apparent 9/11 mastermind, an Al-Qaeda member, Osama bin Laden. Many European countries assisted the US in what was called Operation Enduring Freedom. During the war, extensive damage was done to the environment, and many people suffered health effects from weapons applied to destroy enemy targets. It is estimated that 10,000 villages and their surrounding environments were destroyed. Safe drinking water was declined because of the destruction of water infrastructure and resulting leaks, bacterial contamination, and water theft. Rivers and groundwater were contaminated by poorly constructed landfills located near the sources. Afghanistan once consisted of major forests watered by monsoons. During the war, Taliban members illegally trading timber in Pakistan destroyed much of the forest cover. US bombings and refugees in need of firewood destroyed much of what remained. Less than 2% of the country still contains a forest cover today. Less than 2%. Bombs threatened much of the country's wildlife. One of the world's important migratory thoroughfare leads through Afghanistan. The number of birds now flying this route has dropped by 85%. In the mountains, many large animals such as leopards found refuge, but much of that habitat is applied as refuge for military forces now. Additionally, refugees capture leopards and other large animals and they trade them for safe passage across the border. Pollution from applications of explosives entered air, soil, and water. One example is cyclonite, And cyclonite is a toxic substance that may cause cancer. Rocket propellants deposited perchlorates. Perchlorates destroy the thyroid gland. Numerous landmines left behind in Afghan soils still cause deaths of men, women, and children. In 1966, the Prince of Cambodia began to lose the faith of many for failure to come to grips with the deteriorating economic situation. And in 1967, rebellion started in a wealthy province where many landowners lived. Villagers began attacking the tax collection brigade because taxes were invested in building large factories, causing land to be taken. This led to a bloody war. And before conflict could be reprised, 10,000 people had died. More and more, we look at these wars. Wars that included places like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, with the nuclear explosion there. Places like Iraq and Kuwait, with the Gulf War in 1991. You have places like in 2003 with the war on terrorism from the September 2001 event with Iraq and the US. You have Israel and Lebanon in 2006. In 1994, you have Russia and Chechnya. You have the Vietnam War that started in 1945 and ended in 1975. All of these events, the Kosovo War, World War I, World War II, all of these events have had environmental impact, and none of them have been minor environmental impacts. Yet oftentimes we wonder why it is that there's continued cases and growing cases of cancer, of respiratory problems, of droughts and famine, of livestock dying out, of diseases spread across the world. Do we ever stop to think about how much war could be contributing to these things as a result of harmful chemicals being deposited in our water, in our air, in our soil? Nothing good really comes from war. But yet still, it is one of those things that is continuously happening. And we kind of have to ask the question, why? Why is war happening? Because some people just feel like they should take ownership of some land? Because what? We created this land, so we can take ownership of it? Oh, we've claimed this land. So because we've claimed this land, now we're taking ownership of it. So we're defending that land to make sure that we keep it. And as a result, have to go to war to prove that we're stronger so we can keep it. Where is all this coming from? Where is it going? And what happens as a result? We've seen that as a result, there has been famine. There has been health issues. There has been birth defects. There has been death. Death directly as a result of the war, or later on as a residual effect of the war. Because of damaged water sources that has led to drought. Because of contaminated water that has led to poisoning. Because of contaminated air that has led to respiratory problems which cause death. Ultimately, I know one business that apparently thrives with war outside of the weapons industry has to be the pharmaceutical industry. But we didn't really think about that one either, did we? Maybe the powers that be did. And it's a part of a grand scheme. I don't know. It's worth asking the question, though. So, when we think about what happens as a result of war, we must think of, yes, the psychological impact. We must think of the physical impact, the impact on our economy, on our buildings, on our infrastructure, the environmental impact on our water supply, on our air quality, on our flora and fauna. You're talking about sustaining life. Faulty or farming practices that don't work had been implemented, causing land to become barren and desert. Overfishing. And then the land that is actually good land to farm on, or the areas in the oceans that are good for fishing, either become battlegrounds all over again because of all the groups that want to take claim, or they become overused and end up like the rest, void of life, all as a result of war. Maybe we need to look at the cause of the war. Is it something really serious? Is it that lives are really being threatened? Or is it just a matter of egos being bruised? And individuals in positions of power need to flex their muscles. To what end? To whose benefit? Things that make you go, This has been Community and Finance, and we've been talking tonight about the economic and the environmental effect that war has. If you know about some, feel free to share. Call me, text me, email me, jump into, connect with me on kevinstew.com. Drop me a line, whichever way. I'll get it. We can talk about it. Thank you very much. I do appreciate love the words of encouragement. Thank you. We're gonna have a little bit of an abbreviated musical therapy. I want to thank GMAT Music Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the show, which does just that. Take us into musical therapy. GMAT Music Solution brings your event to life by providing sound and stage production services, which include lighting. They can provide musicians, bands, singers, PA systems, audio engineers, and equipment. Just give them a call. Ask them what they can do for the event that you are having. And they'll do whatever it is that they can in their power to meet your needs. Give them a call, 754-307-GMAC. That's 754-307-4622. And tell them you heard about them on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew.
Loud the lion make him roar. Goodness and mercy shall follow I. Steps of the righteous man are ordered by the Most High.
Kicking it off with a little choric. It's called Can't Kill My Dream.
You can't kill my dream, you can't stop me hustle. You fight where you want, fight it just build up me muscle. Cause you can't kill my dream, you'll never stop me hustle. No way, no way, no. Tell you say you can't kill my dream, you can't stop me hustle. All the fight you want, fight it just build up me muscle. Cause you can't kill my dream, you'll never stop me hustle. No way, no way. Cause my spirit is unbreakable. That means my will is strong and my foundation is unshakable. Enough training, enough practice, I got this, now I'm capable. Me ready for whatever, not doing this for pleasure. I'm coming with the pressure, time for work and no leisure. I'm coming for that treasure, at the top is my endeavor. And if you're waiting for me to give up, you wait forever. Cause I am not a quitter, I endure to be the victor. One more thing to consider, remember say you can't kill me dream, you can't stop me hustle. All the fight you a fight it just build up me muscle. Cause you can't kill me dream, you'll never stop me hustle. No way, no way, no way, no. Remember say you can't kill me dream, you can't stop me hustle. All the fight you a fight it just build up me muscle. Cause you can't kill me dream, you'll never stop me hustle. No way, no way, I've got the eye of a tiger and I'm never gonna give up. Spirit of a fighter in me and it and live up. If you sit down on me chair, you know you have to get up. Cause I'm coming for my share. Run bust a figure, kick up opportunity. No waste, cause them the things me grab and grip up. Try keep up, cause if you're waiting for me to give up, you wait forever. Cause I am not a quitter, I endure to be the victor. One more thing to consider, remember say you can't kill me dream, you can't stop me hustle. All the fight you want, fight it just build up me muscle. Cause you can't kill me dream, you'll never stop me hustle. No way, no way. I tell you say you can't kill me dream, you can't stop me hustle. All the fight you want, fight it just build up me muscle. So you can't kill me dream and you'll never stop my hustle. No way, no way, no. Justify the patience, me run this race. Just the process, me no in no haste. Keep on track, on the road straight. Not pre, no guy, me no watch no face. Not an easy road, it's not an easy road. Sometimes I heavy load, sometimes I heavy load. But you can't kill me dream, you can't stop me hustle. All the fight you and fight it just build up me muscle. Say you can't kill me dream and you never stop me hustle. No way, no way. You'll never kill my dream, can't stop my hustle. All the fight you and fight it just build up me muscle. So you can't kill my dream and you never stop my hustle. No way.
Ideas, get a changing ways. Ideas, if you want see longer days. Ideas, time to come up off the street before Babylon turn up the heat. Ideas, get a changing ways. Ideas, if you want see longer days. Ideas, time to stop one rude before killing, damn your food.
This is Sly and Robbie working out with Hope and Linda. Track called Hard Years.
Prison life and no fault alone. Gunshot a lick and it no respect no one, so you better change your direction before you end up in a police station or a worse situation. Ideas, you better change your ways. Ideas, if you want to see longer days. Ideas, time to come off of the street before Babylon turn up the heat. Ideas, you better change your ways. Ideas, if you want to see longer days. Ideas, time to stop one rude before killing come down your phone. Beat up your family, refusing to quit. Read over blood money, tell me is it worth it? I chat about you a bad boy, hey, and I ride like a cowboy. But time longer than rope, don't take it for joke. Check yourself before you wreck yourself and watch what you smoke. It's not too late to take advice, so listen to the words of the wise. Hey, ideas, you better change your ways. Ideas, if you want to see longer days. Ideas, time to come off of the street before Babylon turn up the heat. Ideas, you better change your ways. Ideas, if you want to see longer days. Ideas, time to stop one rude before killing come down your phone. You can't hear, you must have to feel, must have to feel. If you can't hear, you must have to feel, so get it. You can't hear, you must have to feel, must have to feel. You can't hear, you must have to feel.
It wasn't long ago when I saw your face. Stood there staring at me in a dangerous place. Dancing in a crowded room. Last summer it was late in June. Let me step back, boy. Now you can make your move.
This is Groove Galore.
When I look into your eyes, it's
Working out with Belinda Brady.
too hard to intertwine.
The track is called Show Me.
Your soul, I get nervous, I can't lie. Show me what you gonna do when you hold me. What you gonna say when you touch me. Now that you know it's in me ready. For all of your loving love. Show me what you gonna do when you hold me. What you gonna say when you touch me. Now that you know it's in me ready. For all of your loving love. Temptation madly draws me closer to you. I wanna be wrapped up in your sexy groove. Trouble's gonna run, they coming my way. Captivated by sweet words you say. Throw caution to the wind. Let us fly away. When I look into your eyes, sweet danger mesmerized. Now two hearts are intertwined. But when I step into your soul, I get nervous, I can't lie. Show me what you gonna do when you hold me. What you gonna say when you touch me. Now that you know it's in me ready. For all of your loving love. Show me what you gonna do when you hold me. What you gonna say when you touch me. Now that you know it's in me ready. For all of your loving love. I get nervous, I can't lie. Temper, my God, this a sound in a temper. Whoa, fever. My God, this a sound in a fever. Whoa, show me what you gonna do when you hold me. What What you gonna say when you touch me? Now that you know I'm ready for all your loving ones. What you gonna do? I gave him back the keys to his front door, 'cause it seems he didn't care about me anymore.
This is the sound of Tennille.
I gave him all the love.
The track is called Front Door.
Yeah. So I packed my things into a Gucci bag and started to quit. The Lord knows that I don't wanna be lonely tonight. No, I don't wanna be lonely tonight. Mommy know that I don't wanna be lonely tonight. 'Cause I would rather to be lonely than to live a dirty life. All of those things that we've been through used to make me happy, now make me blue. I didn't believe the things that I've heard, no, but now I've seen it with my own eyes. I know actions speak louder than words. But Lord knows that I don't wanna be lonely tonight. I don't want me knows that I don't wanna be lonely tonight. I don't wanna be lonely tonight. But I would rather to be lonely than to live a dirty life. Dirty life. Take your keys and go on, me no want them no more. All them dirty lies, you can keep them for sure. Me a one girl you can't play with. Me rather sleep by myself than to stay with. Bam, bam, what's a bam, bam, what's a bam, bam, what's a bam, bam. You see me? I don't wanna be lonely tonight. I don't wanna be lonely tonight. Boy, don't you treat me like a puppy on the street. Music just turns me on. 'Cause you know I done went from lie to lie, and you controlling everything. See, there ain't enough time in
That's right.
to be playing games.
It's best to recognize that when you have you, you're never lonely.
To say,
Anyone else? Just icing.
so I need you to tell me if you feel the
This is Echo Slim working out with Striker Lee
baby. Do you love
and Chris Alexander.
me, love me, love me, tell me, do you love me, baby?
And that's the title of the track. Do you love me?
I'm standing here waiting in the rain, knocking on your door, but nobody answering. Baby, why don't you tell me? You could even spell it out. I can hear you clearly. We could take it slow. I just gotta be a lady. Don't have me out here believing in your story. Yeah, baby, I've been waiting here, hoping that you feel the same. I really like it, but don't wanna wait and wait. I spill my heart to you. I'm asking for the truth. Is it really me and you, or am I just illusion now? Do you love me, baby? Do you love me, love me, love me, love me, love me right now? Do you love me, baby?
How y'all going? want so. Never meant for hurt me, but she did. What a thing now me, I sit down and now you for bring the mess. Tell me that you want me love, but you got nothing to give. I me hang him on your line and boy, that's no way to live. Whoa, you can't get one more minute of my time. You got me stressed out, now I'm drawing the line. Boy, you couldn't keep up, so you are get left behind. Now me, I run back and forward, you was wasting my time. So tell me, boy, do you love me, baby? Do you love me, love me, love me, love me, love me? Tell me, do you love me, baby? Do you love me, baby? Do you love me, love me, love me, love me, love me? Tell me, do you love me, baby?
There's nothing that could keep me away, my love. And the dark of the night, or the heat of the fire, my love.
I want to thank you all for sticking with me through musical therapy.
I'll take the time to ease your mind, yeah.
Remember to join me tomorrow, Healthy Love, right here, same time, same place, 10 p.m. KevinStew.com. This is Christina Alicia. The track is called Key Lock. Aisha B. A track called Tonight.
I can't wait for you to get home so I can give it to you. Tonight we'll take that flight. It's the flight of our lives on our way to paradise. And tonight we'll take that flight. It's the flight of our lives on our way to paradise.
softness of your touch, now Anna makes me feel the way you do. My emotions are overflowing and I just can't take no more. Baby, what are you doing to me? Keep the loving coming tonight. We'll take that flight. It's the flight of our lives. On the way to paradise.
This is where I take my flight to my personal paradise. Catch you tomorrow. Healthy love right here. KevinStew.com, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world. I'm out of here. When being in the moment is priceless, consider the ability to share that moment. If you can video it, you can broadcast it. And Pulse E-Media Group has the tools you need. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, graduations, church services, parties, seminars, you name it. Pulse E-Media Group can provide you with a secure medium controlled by you to broadcast your event. Contact us at www.pulsemediagroup.com for more information. Pulse E-Media Group, when being in the moment is priceless.